Hello. I am Bad Dog, and I'm coming to you live from the very, very tip top of Crawford Mountain. And up here, I get a whole other different perspective. Oh yeah. But tonight, I got a guest. We're going to get D.B. Cooper. Yeah, he contributes to the old, what do you call it? The Guy Fawkes podcast, otherwise known as the Gunpowder Plot Show. What we got here? Oh... there you go. I got a new thing. Johnny made me. See if
Bad Dog.
Oh, poo. Alright, here we go. Let's give old Daryl a call. Old DB! Hello?
Hello?
Let me see here. Yeah, there we go. We got Mr. DB Cooper on tonight with us.
I am here. I don't expect any disconnections, so.
Well, fine.
Oh, fine. Well, that take the fun out of it?
Yeah. Well, I won't be able to talk about you when you're gone.
Oh, it'll just be you, so.
Right.
It's not as fun. It's better when you can, like, bounce back and forth with another guy. Not in a gay way.
Yeah. Well, John O. Machado was busy.
Yeah, told him I wasn't happy.
You weren't happy.
Well, he said he was going to get out, and then we were both playing Warzone, and I got off, and he tried to invite me. He's like, "Where'd you go?" I was like, "Getting off to do this podcast." He's like, "Yeah, I can't do it tonight." He's a busy dude, though. I'll give him that. He runs and runs pretty much all day when he does get up.
Well, you got to make hay while the sun shines. That's what they say.
Or smoke hay. While it's dark.
Well, there you go. You could smoke hay. I wouldn't recommend it.
You probably don't know it, but that's like a early 90s rap song. Hay. Smoking on hay.
Smoking on hay. Is that Mexican weed?
Back then it was. More seeds than actual weed.
I remember those days.
I know. I tell people about it, and they don't really believe me.
I remember a friend of mine gave me a bunch of marijuana. And it was a big old giant bag, and I was like, "What, really?" He's like, "Yeah, man, you can have it for free." But when I got home and dumped it out, it was like half seeds. I'm talking like probably a couple ounces of seeds that were in it.
Jeez, yeah.
And but it, it didn't cost me anything, so.
Yeah. I used to eat them.
I came in from work. I had a couple roommates, and we were jonesing. We were out of the marijuana. And I still had that big old jar of seeds. And they had dumped it in the blender, and they're like, "Hey, man, you think we can blend up these seeds and smoke them?" I was like,
oh, God, nope.
I'm going with no. And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Well, I never heard anybody else do it."
And, like, you remember what happened when you'd accidentally leave one in a joint and you'd get to it and it'd, like, be like a bomb?
Oh, yeah, you found the right seed. It was
blow
like
up.
putting one of those cigarette things at the end of your joint. It would explode.
Uh-huh.
And I hate the taste of a burning seed.
Yeah, and it smells horrible.
I'm like, man, what is
funny,
going
'cause
on here?
I just thought of that the other day. I don't remember why, but I was like, man, it's been so long. And like I don't even smoke flower, but once in a while when weed got really good, you'd find a seed and it'd be like, oh yeah, I remember weed used to have seeds. But it doesn't anymore.
No, not really. I find them now and I keep them.
Yeah, because if you find one now, they're almost definitely feminine.
Yeah, and hybrid of some sort. And
Yep.
I actually gave some away last year. Not quite a year ago, somebody was like, I can't find any good seeds. And I was like, I got some. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah.
My cousin grows, and he usually orders his, actually. But I think they guarantee, like, at least 80% are definitely feminine.
Oh, they can probably
Female.
guarantee higher. I've had some buddies of mine that do that, and they were never disappointed.
Maybe it's 9 out of 10, but I know the percentage is pretty high.
And what do they call it? Anyway, it was like a 3-month growth period, too.
That sounds about right.
I was like,
That's pretty quick, though.
Yeah. I used to grow the marijuana way back when it wasn't cool. Had to go way out in the woods and cut down half my plants because they were male and go drag them a mile and a half away.
Yeah, we grew inside, but it was we were limited on space, property, and growing season. Michigan's actually pretty good for marijuana growth, but we always grew inside because we didn't have property.
I remember a buddy of mine, he grew inside, had a big hydroponic system down in the basement, and he was out of town for a day or so, and I was watching his house. I was in it, and I saw some dude outside the house looking in the windows. We had everything blocked up; you couldn't see anything. But
Oh, jeez.
so, and he was walking around towards the back. So I met him at the back door, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the county assessor. I need to get into your house and do some assessing." And I was like, "Well, not my house, and you're not coming in here." Well,
Is that a real thing?
What's that?
County assessor? Do they actually go inside people's houses?
Well, he said he was going to, and I was
So
like,
he was
"Oh no!"
Chopper.
Well, they would come. This was the guy that put the value on your house.
Okay.
That was who he was. He's coming out to.
Oh, okay, for tax reasons.
Yeah. But I was like, nope. Well, I got to come in. I'm like, no, dude, you're going to have to call the owner and make an appointment. That's, he's out of town. I'm watching the house, and no.
Your job isn't that important.
Right. And anyway, he left, and then I called my buddy and was like, hey, man. And he dropped whatever he was doing, and we came back and took it all down that night. It was probably like at 95% done.
Could you smell it in the house?
No, not really, because we had, what did we had? We had ionizers around. Yeah. So we had several of those in there. And I'd say 4. And then plus we also had CO2 running.
Oh yeah, we had a CO2 machine too.
So we had.
We always grew small amounts. We didn't have much space, so it was always like closet jobs.
This was a whole basement.
We had good lights and stuff though. We grew great weed, but just not very large amounts.
Yeah, we had a sun circle.
Yeah.
So we had 2 different lights running around in a circle, and each light had different properties to it.
I'm guessing a high pressure sodium and a metal halide.
Yep. But they would they would put off different types of light.
Yep, different spectrums.
So, and then we had Mylar all over the walls.
Sounds pretty solid.
Oh, we had it going on now. It was, and like I said, and it was hydro, and That was actually the second batch. The first one was about halfway done or so, and it caught some mold, and all of it caught mold.
Yeah, was that the hydro setup?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember. We were looking into it, and I know there was a lot of warnings about how batches could go bad real quick.
Yep. And it went real, all of them. So you had to be on top of hydroponics. I preferred dirt after that.
More, yeah. I mean, it was one or the other. That's why we steered away from it, just because of the room for error and everything could go wrong immediately.
Yeah, and everything. You lose everything. But we ran into some people that were like, well, it's all moldy. I don't care.
Oh, jeez.
Like, okay. As long as you know.
It only takes 1 or 2 times to smoke some moldy weed and you realize you never want to do it again.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I'm not into moldy anything.
It hurts your lungs.
I'm like, wow.
You can grow shrooms in Denver. You can have them legally here, too. You can grow them, and my friend was talking about doing it. I looked into it a while ago, and it's a pretty complex process, and it's weird because it's got to be super sterile. And I was in a few groups looking up information about it, and it just sounded like way more hassle than I was interested in. Plus, I don't really like shrooms either. I was just kind of interested in it, but I was like, dude, I looked into it and it sounded like a major hassle. I was like, you gotta have pretty much a separate room. It's weird. It has to be super, like I said, super sterile. So, I mean, they grow on cow poop, so I don't know how sterile that is, but it must be sterile.
Right. I don't know. No, I don't know a whole lot about that, but I do know when I was in Oregon, I knew people who did that, and they actually grew mushrooms on a farm and a bunch of other stuff, but it was a big production because they would end up taking these mushrooms and putting them in pill capsules.
Oh, yep.
I thought that was awesome because I got a giant handful of them on my birthday one year. Because they were like, yeah, each one's got about 1 gram, and I'm like, awesome.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, I was walking around for 2 weeks, all happy. But they grew those in a cave on this farm. So that was kind of cool. I never did go there. I did do a lot of clipping. I didn't pay for any marijuana in Oregon. I ran into the right people and was clipping marijuana and getting paid for it, and then walking out with trash bags full of shake, and then plus walk out with brown bag full of bud.
Did make go ahead.
A few $100s in cash.
It's so much work.
Oh yeah.
They make these things that are kind of like a dryer that'll spin the weed now and knock off the leaves. I'm sure they lose a little bit of bud, but it's way easier, I imagine, because they just throw it in there and it knocks it all down.
Well, I come up with a bright idea of taking our scissors and leaving them with in a cup of alcohol. I'd cut, and it'd get gummy, and I'd drop it in a cup of alcohol and grab me another one, because I was like, hey, man, we have a bunch of scissors. Don't just hand five of us 5 scissors. The second time I went in to do it, I had a different plan.
Yeah, because you don't get very far before they start getting real gummy. If you got decent weed.
Yeah, everything would get gummy. Learned how to make hash. We'd make ice hash.
With the bags?
Yeah, the bags of little.
I think they call it I want to say it's called bubble hash.
I call it ice, or it was hair hash, and it was cool. And I got like half of that I would get to keep, because that would be the crappier. You would cough a lot when you smoked it.
Yeah.
But then the real refined, somebody would sell. I didn't.
Yeah, because it would pull out to different areas of the bags, right?
Yeah, different, bags. So you wanted the very bottom bag would be the white hair, the whitest, cleanest, perfect stuff. It was awesome.
Yeah, when I get the white or clear concentrate out here, I'm always happy because that's always the best stuff.
Yeah, and somebody I knew that did that, that got those bags, picked it up in a free box at one of the, not consignment shops, but co-ops they had out there.
Crazy. Somebody who didn't know what it was, probably.
Yeah, he thought they were like sleeping bag holders until he got to looking at it and figuring it out with a couple buddies.
Pretty expensive. I want to say they're like close to $100 for a set of them.
I don't know. I know we would take all those where we would trim, then we would take all those giant trash bags that we would take home with us over there and stuff them in a big igloo cooler full of ice and then dump it into the bags and let it do its thing. Like shake it around in the ice.
Yeah.
And damned if I wasn't smoking hash a couple hours later.
Make some concentrate with the ice like that, too.
Yep.
I should probably do it, but...
They were pretty clever there in Oregon. That's where I ran into, like, a few witches and covens.
It's gaining a lot of popularity, for sure. People are having need to fill that spiritual hole that they got.
And they didn't care for me. I remember one witch kicked me out of her house. As soon as I walked in the door, didn't know me from Adam. But as soon as I walked through the door, man, she freaked out. She started talking about my aura.
Jeez.
And talked about me.
She's obviously connected then, because she was getting a warning from her little spirit there.
Yeah, she's like, hell no, this guy, he's a Jesus guy.
Yep.
And, I don't want him in here. And I'm like, all right. I love you.
I mean, that's a pat on the back, basically.
Yeah, and you know what? Several of the hippies saw that and recognized that. Well, actually, they were like, hey, dude, you're something special. And I'm like, no. No, I'm not. I'm like, I got enough Jesus in me to be dangerous, dude. Come on.
Yeah. I have a younger friend out here, and he's got a lot of younger lady friends, and a lot of them claim to be witches or into witchcraft. It's gaining a lot of popularity.
Yep, I've ran into several, and most of them I get along with just fine because they seem to,
Well, most of them seem like it's more like environmentalism thing. They're like think it's like about being connected to the earth. They're missing the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I always, what do I called it today? Somebody at the Fringe Radio Network got fired for really laying on how you're going to get to heaven. Like, this is the only way you're going to get there, and we don't really try to do that on our network. We try to reach people who aren't Christians.
And that's a real negative way to reach them.
Yeah, I was telling them you're going to burn in hell if you don't do it this way.
Exactly.
I'm like, at that point, I'm like, oh, you're so damn pious. We're all going to burn if that's how you're going to be.
Yeah,
because I'm like, it clearly Jesus says something totally different.
Yeah, and just like look at his example. I was telling one of my friends who's not a believer the other day about, I just try to obviously be an example of what Jesus was, but he hung out with all the lowlifes. He went to like the worst people and would build them up. And so I was saying to him is like kind of like my goal is not to hang out with the worst people, but like live more by example and make people want to see your life and want to know why your life seems so good. That's ideal.
Right.
That's probably the best way you can witness to people is having showing that your life is good.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I was in Oregon, I was a manager at this Lake of the Woods resort, and out towards the marina and the restaurant, Deli Marina restaurant. Anyway, one of the kids came in one day because they would have a bunch of kids that would come in for college to work there during the summer, and one of them came over and was like, "Hey, Bentley, you're a Christian, right?" I'm like, "What?" Because I was like, ain't nobody in Oregon talking about Jesus anywhere. They just did not do that. So I remember talking to my friends back east. I'm like, yeah, man, they're not like churches everywhere. And I was like, a lot of witches and hippies that are atheists. And but I had the maintenance man up there one day. I saw him reading the Bible and walked up on him and was like, "Hey, you reading the Bible?" And then introduced myself to him and let him know I was among it. And then after that, me and him would have very cool conversations. And the reason why I'm telling you about him, because I thought he was a little bit more, because, this is in 2010. So we'll say I'm not as well-versed or whatever back then that I am now. And he was a little older. But when this kid was, talking to me, he's like, yeah, I was raised atheist. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, can you tell me about Jesus? And I was just like, or, how do I, get to know Jesus? Because I don't know. And I was like, well, man, won't you start with that? He's like, what? I'm like, just say, hey, Jesus, I don't know. I don't know. Can you help me out? And he was like, but, can we talk? And I was like, I might not be the best guy to talk to because, and then I told him about our maintenance man.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, let me get you hooked up with him and let him get you lined out a little better than old Bentley. Because I remember at that time, that was when I think I coined the phrase with some hippie that I was wanting to punch in the face. Oh my God, I wanted to punch that kid so much. But I was still in my Jesus thing too, right? And they were calling me a redneck there, even though I wasn't being a redneck. I am a redneck, but compared to the people where I come from, I'm like redneck light.
Pretty much the same.
And so this guy, he's like asked me what I was, and he threw off a couple different things, right? And he's like, "You're a redneck?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "Dude, I'm a recovering redneck. That's what I am. Because the redneck in me wants to punch you. But the recovering redneck in me says, that'd be all wrong." And he was like, I remember he still ran his mouth, and I was like, well, dude, if you need me to jump off the wagon, we can go that route too. I prefer not to.
Yep, keep going. You're almost talking me into it.
But it won't get me off the wagon. But he was also a lot smaller than me, so I wasn't going to be actually fighting him because I made that a rule years ago, never to mess with guys that are a lot smaller than me. Number one, if you beat them up, you're a butthole. And number two, if they beat you up, you're a butthole. It does not work out as a win for me at that point. There's no bragging rights in beating up some guy that's half your size.
No.
I want to be able to brag
like you
about
said,
it.
If you lose, there's no win either way. Because if you lose, it's bad news to you. You feel ashamed the rest of your life.
Now, don't get me. I did grow up with some other small guys that were real little badasses, and I always felt bad for people that were getting ready to mess with them.
I don't know what you're getting into. This is a little Wolverine.
I remember old Brandon Burgess. God rest his soul. Some kind of thugs come into our part of town and try to run some kind of backyard MMA boxing thing on the side. And they weren't from our neighborhood, so some of the guys from the neighborhood went over there. And we're like, what's going on? You know, and they thought they were big old thugs from I don't know where. I was out of town. I was in Utah. I caught this hearsay from my dad, and he was telling me about it. And I was like, really? Got a fights? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, cool. I was like, yeah, nice. I like to sit around the alley and watch people beat up, maybe throw $5 on somebody. I'd be cool with that. But these guys were trying to charge all the locals some kind of something. And so
to watch it?
Yeah. And and this is our neighborhood. They're like, man, you can't come in here and do that. He's like, so Brandon Burgess, which was the guy's about 5'2", walked over to him with a baseball bat, and he's like, and guess what happened? I was like, oh, I know what happened. Because I remember Brandon was like, not only was he a badass, he was also beautiful. Okay? You just want to, like, grab this little tiny guys by the cheek and be like, oh, man, you're so cute. I was like, yeah, they saw Brandon and did not think he was going to use that baseball bat. And he's like, yep. He's like, you put them all in the hospital and he's in jail.
Jeez.
I'm like, I would have run. I knew Brandon Burgess. If it was him and me and him with a baseball bat, I'm leaving. Because I know he's swinging for, the stands.
So if I see anybody walking up with a baseball bat, I don't have a weapon, I'm probably stepping back.
Yeah, I did watch a guy that had a baseball bat one night. He had a baseball bat. And these guys came at him. And instead of swinging at him like I thought he was going to and should have, because these guys were going to kick his butt, and he did start it too. He threw the baseball bat at him and took off running. Now I'm standing probably 20 yards away from that with this guy's best friend, right? This guy's name was Road Dogg, and I'm standing with Tiny, his best friend. And they're from Cleveland, and they're messing with West Virginia boys in North Carolina. I knew how it was going to go down. But, so when Road Dogg took off running after he threw the baseball bat, this wasn't long after Forrest Gump, so I screamed out, "Run, Forrest, run!" And his buddy Tiny, who was also my buddy, like, punched me in the arm. And he's like, dude, you gotta be an asshole. And I was like, man, he just fucking threw a baseball bat and took off running. That's funny. Run, Forrest!
Kind of wanted to establish we weren't together, too.
I
don't have a bat.
Oh. And then he got mad at me. My buddy Matt got mad at me because I wasn't going to press charges on the West Virginia boys, even though his boys started it. And I told him, I was like, look, man, it was West Virginia boys. He's like, so? I was like, we're brothers. I was like, I can't call the law on my people. He got mad. It's like, I ain't prosecuting them. I was a manager, so it was all up to me anyway.
Kind of a pretty good reason to call the cops, they say, too.
Well, he was just mad because a couple of his buddies got beat up. But not like they should have, because both of them ultimately ran. So, but I remember telling my buddy Tiny in the bar, and he got mad at me again because I was really laughing at the whole thing. And I said, he's like, well, they're not stupid. And I was like, well, I know they're not stupid. I was like, my dad told me fear is a sign of intelligence. Both those dudes ran off. I was like, they knew better.
Because not many people really think that, but you had definitely you'd call people dumb when they just stand there, or like you see videos of gunshots and people are like looking around. It's like, gunshots, you hit the ground, buddy. The dumb people are looking around. What is that? Where's that coming from?
Yeah, like me, I've been around enough guns to know that if I don't have a gun and I hear a gun, I'm getting down.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a cover, and I'll probably grab whoever is with me because, like you said, most people do not know what to do in that situation. Luckily, I was in the military, so I wasn't really trained to run towards gunfire like cops.
Jeez.
I wouldn't want that job, to be trained to run towards gunfire. I'd probably have to take a couple extra months of training on that.
A lot of the cops now are dragging their feet when they get calls, certain calls at least.
Oh, man. That Uvalde.
Oh, God, that's another level, though. Jeez.
Man, I was humiliated for all that. I grew up with guys who were cops, and they're pretty good cops, but I also knew some of the other cops, too, and some of them were cowboys, and if there was anybody that was going to shoot someone like that in my hometown, like I knew the guy that would do it. There was a couple guys, I think we called one of them RoboCop, because he was pretty quick to shoot somebody. And I know RoboCop would have been in there in a heartbeat. He'd have walked right in there shooting at that dude standing straight up.
Are you talking the guy or the robot?
The guy. Well,
okay.
The cop's nickname was RoboCop because he was a real dick.
I was almost like, well, yeah, RoboCop didn't fear death because he couldn't really die.
Well,
I was like, wait a minute, he's talking about that guy.
Yeah, because I remember he shot and killed some guy in the hospital, right?
Jeez.
In my hometown. The RoboCop cop.
Yeah.
In my hometown. And so people were pissed off, and I remember telling them, I was like, look, man, they're like, well, he could have shot him in the leg. And I'm like, well, sure, anybody could shoot him in the leg. I was like, but none of it, I was like, when I was trained, like when I pull a weapon and I start shooting, there's a certain way I'm shooting. And it does not involve shooting at a leg.
Yeah. 2 or 3 people I was telling, I'm sorry, I cut you off, go ahead.
But yeah, I was like, I'm shooting center mass right away, or try to hit the head.
Yeah. I've had this same conversation with 2 or 3 people lately who said if they were in a confrontation, they would try to shoot somebody in the leg. I'm like, listen, if you pull your gun out, you don't try to shoot somebody in the leg. I was like, that if you pull your gun out, you're assuming that person's trying to kill you or do serious harm to you. Your goal is to stop them and shoot them directly in the center. And they're like, oh, no. I'm like, yes, that is how it works. And then eventually they came to terms with it, but it's
don't pull it.
That's the whole media thing. It's like, like people thinking cops can do that stuff, and it's just like, I was like, you don't pull your gun out unless you plan on using it. If you plan on using it, you better use it right because you got to eliminate the threat. Yeah,
I'm like, people have watched all kinds of movies, and they've seen gun ranges in all those movies, and all those papers do not have legs hanging down from them when they're target practicing.
No.
And then, like I said, you're not trained to do that.
Yeah.
And I like to tell them also, I'm like, naked people kill cops. So there you go.
I just seen a video of that not long ago. This naked dude chasing all the cops, and they were just trying to avoid him. And I think he seriously injured one of them. I think he had a knife. I think the stat is 20 feet or less, a knife is more dangerous than a gun.
Yeah, they can run right up on you.
Yeah.
I'm a kind of a big knife guy, and I wouldn't have to get very close to you. I could throw one lickety-split and be pretty confident it is not going to feel good.
I've always wanted to be a good knife thrower. I'm not.
You got to get the right knife.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I've got a little like tomahawk that I assume throws awesome. I haven't been able to throw it yet, but it's super sweet.
Man, go sit on your ass somewhere and throw it at the bottom of the tree for a while, like a few days, a week.
See how it spins.
Yeah, just get used to the weight of it, and then move up. I'm more of a knife guy. I like knife. Yeah, and I noticed though that asshole that murdered those kids up in Moscow, Idaho, used a K-bar.
Oh, that's what I have.
And that's what I have, and I'm like, oh, you dick.
That's such a wicked knife.
It is, and I'm just like, I know how brutal it was, and just like, wow, dude, really?
Yeah. I mean, shooting kids would be ugly, but friggin' killing them with a knife,
that's pretty personal.
You gotta have like no life in your eyes.
Yeah. Because another thing I talked to people was like, well, why do you like a knife? I was like, because knives don't go bang, bang. If I use a knife, ain't nobody gonna know I used a knife.
Yeah.
And that's how he killed all those people in that house.
I definitely prefer guns, but if I was in some sort of fighting situation, I'd definitely have that K-bar on me.
Well, I always had mine. I finally traded up. I got a new one. I still have my original, but my newer one, I've kind of switched it because it's got like half of a serrated blade on it.
Okay, yeah, mine's just the back's smooth until you get towards the end, then it's bladed again.
So I got the old Marine issue. Mine's a Marine Corps issue.
Yeah, like almost like Rambo style.
Not like his though. No.
But he had like that same style with the serrated back and the blade.
Yeah, that's not a K-bar. Not a full.
I didn't think it was a K-bar, but yeah.
But his is more of a, because he had the. Now that knife was bad. I remember I used to be able to tell you the guy that made it. It was a special knife. It was probably a several $1,000 knife, dude. That knife he used was for real deal in First Blood. And I'm a First Blood fan because I saw it way back when, of course, but then I read the book.
I tell so many people, I was like, man, read the book of Rambo and see how merciful he was in the book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when they talk about, well, man, he killed a lot of people in that, and I was like, he didn't kill anybody.
Exactly.
He killed that one guy, but I'm going to give him a pass. He was just kind of protecting himself with some rogue cop that was definitely trying to kill him.
Somebody mentioned it. It might have been you. Somebody mentioned it like a year ago, and I looked into it, and I was like, whoa, way more dark.
Oh, yeah. His brain is working on overtime. Like, I love the beginning because, he picked that whole fight at the beginning. He's like, all right, I'm done. Next town I come to and they mess with me, it's on.
Like, when he was interacting with that cop at the beginning?
Yeah, but this is all going through his head.
Okay.
He knew he was going to be messing with them then. Before he rolled into town, he'd already been, while he was out there walking, going, man, I'm done dealing with these jerkwater cops. Next one of them that slaps me around is going to get it.
Well, I just imagine him probably getting yelled at by Jane Fonda when he came back from Vietnam and just spilled over.
Jane Fonda. I used to think she was beautiful, and then I found out about her politics.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, man, Jane.
I grew up in the 80s, so she was old, and then people talked about her, and I looked back on it, and I was like, whoa, she was hot.
I'm like, oh, my God. Barbarella?
Yeah, that's what it was. That's my first experience with seeing her when she was younger. I was like, whoa.
And her little niece was a hottie, too. Bridget Fonda.
Here's the name. I can't remember her, though.
She wasn't Jane Fonda, but she was, you know. If Jane was a 10, Bridget was definitely a 8 plus.
That's what my roster's all stacked with, is like 7s and 8s.
Oh, mine are 10s. At least I make them all feel like they're 10s anyway.
I was talking to my buddy that the other day, because he's like, I've had definitely a bunch of 9s, and I was like, I've thought about it recently. I was like, I think I've had like all 8s and 7s, but that doesn't make them like not attractive. That's for sure. I just feel like they have better personalities, probably. But I probably couldn't score an upper 9 or 10 though.
I scored me a 10 once. I could have had a few more, but that 110 totally wrecked it for any other 10. And but she was loony toony crazy. Oh my God. Literally.
Yeah. I mean, not always, but that freaking hotness to crazy scale is a real thing for sure. I think it's just the fact of, like, I have this, like, I say that women find attention like a drug, and I think that's a big part of it, you know, getting a bunch of attention and not having to, like, necessarily work real hard in life.
Oh, she, I didn't want to hire her. I was a manager at this nightclub, and she came in, and she was gorgeous. I was like, ugh. And I worked with them, and they were usually very lazy girls, right?
And for the most part, usually not very intelligent.
And
so don't have to try.
I was like, no. And then the boss, owner, I won't really call him the boss. I was 99.9% of the time the boss. And, like, this time he was like, no, well, we're hiring her. And I was like, he's like, why don't you like her? Look at her. And I'm like, yeah, look at her. Dude, she's gorgeous. I want that dumbass back here with me, to be honest with you. But then, one night, I was breaking up a fight, kind of, right? Before a fight would start, I would be there. I could read crowds, and then I taught my bouncers how to read crowds, and I was like, let me do it. You know, I don't want my bouncers beating anybody up, so nobody ever got beat up by my bouncers. I was like, let me talk to them. I can talk to people. Well, I went to go talk to these guys, and they're all like 6 foot plus 4, 5, 2, 1, and there's like 5 of them. And they're all Italian looking, and they're all in fucking leather trench coats.
How tall are you?
I'm like 6 foot.
Okay.
And but all these guys were just bigger than me. But we were in a full nightclub. We're upstairs. It would look like this nightclub looked like a old southern plantation house with the big old things in the front, the columns,
pillars,
and a big old driveway coming up to it, and it had a big old looping round staircase that went up to the second floor. It was sweet.
Where was this at?
In North Carolina.
Okay, that sounds about right then.
Taylorsville. Yeah, and so I'm wanting to kick these guys out, and they don't want to get kicked out. Matter of fact, they would prefer to just go ahead and kick my butt, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember, like I was standing somewhere on this balcony that I couldn't jump off of. I was ready to run, right? I'm going to run from these 5 guys. Yeah. I'm like, damn it. And then I'm surrounded by, like, we're packed to the hill. And I turn around and I catch Tiny, my other bouncer, way over in the other side of the bar. Now, he sees what's happening. He's going to come my way, but there's a lot of people in between him and me.
What kind of music did they play?
We played pop, dance music. We had a dance floor, and
I was hoping you were going to say metal.
No.
I guess Italians aren't really known for rocking out to metal, but I'm sure some do.
Yeah, and I tried to keep it like really cool. My doorman was this little tiny girl. She was the one that took the money at the front.
Yeah, usually it's a guy, so that does imply a little more chill atmosphere.
Yeah, I was like, we want them to just see someone nice and pretty, and I was like, if anything would ever happen to her, everybody in here would beat their ass. Nobody's going to mess with Katie. And she was just always so sweet and innocent, man. She was just, I'm like, man, will you please be my bouncer? She's like, nobody will mess with you, I promise. All right, so back to the guys. Look around, I see Tiny. He sees me. And he knows I'm like, come and help me. Even though I didn't say that, he sees that probably in my eyeballs. Help! And so I turn around, and the first one, I say something to him, something smart-ass, or clever, or something. Anyway, they all come at me, right? I grab the first one from the back of his head, and I step, and I push his head down, and he falls down. He falls right and lands on my foot. His head lands on my foot. And all I did was I wasn't like using like full Arnold strength or anything. I was just using a little, judo, wrestling, balance. I knew I had to balance on him, but I never expected that. And then what happened next, I didn't expect at all. Was all the rest of them fell right on top of him.
What?
Yeah, all 5 of these guys in their trench coats were laying at my feet.
How drunk are you guys?
I remember looking up to the ceiling and was like, thank you, Jesus. And then I turned right back to those guys and I was like, all right, get up, get out of here. You cannot stay here. You cannot act this way. And then I remember like pulling my foot out from underneath dude's face because he still couldn't get up because all his buddies were on him.
Jeez.
It was, then when I turned around and saw Tiny, he was about halfway there and he gave me like had his hand up, the big WTF. I'm like, I don't know, man. But anyway.
Did you guys have cameras?
No, we didn't have cameras.
I figured not. I was like, man, that would be like.
That was like in 2000.
Lifetime highlight reels.
That might have been, it was either 99.
The whole crowd.
99 or 2000.
Okay.
Was when that was
graduated.
going on. And, but the 10 downstairs heard about, by the time it was down there, I'd beat up 5 guys upstairs.
I mean, that's a pretty good reputation.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I didn't actually beat anybody up. And they're like, but you took on 5 guys? And I'm like, no. Not really.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, yeah, I guess technically, yeah, but no, it wasn't my intention. I was pooping my pants and hoping I didn't get hurt by these idiots.
And everybody's heard everybody else say it, so at that point they're like, he's just modest. He kicked everybody's ass. He's so awesome.
Oh, yeah, it was, it was funny. And another great night for me. And I had nothing here either. But there was some guy in the bar, and he was, like, losing his mind, like, raging. And the owner, who ultimately is a retired Army Ranger drill instructor.
More than qualified.
Army Ranger drill instructor, right? Because I remember he had the brown round drill sergeant hat when I went in his office. Because I was like, hey, man, is that yours? Because not just anybody allowed to have that hat. Who the hell are you?
Stolen valor. Stolen valor.
Yeah. And so he's like, no, I got this. And he hopped over to the bar in front of that guy and started to, work whatever magic out. And that dude just bitch slapped him, man. He slapped him so hard he went flying out of my view. I was like, oh, my God. So I jumped over the bar and landed in front of him, right? And I am totally not in the mood. my head is nowhere around dealing with a raging lunatic. 10 seconds ago, I was laughing and joking.
Shit got real.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God! And so he came at me, right? I locked up. I was going to make him come at me and, try to move around once he got to me. But out of nowhere, one of my patrons who loved me, and it was a dude. We had a heart-to-heart way back when we opened up, and he was like my buddy after that. I made him feel a lot better about his whole life one night. And turns out he was a professional bodyguard and trainer. That was like his job, right? When people would come out of town and needed a bodyguard, he would go be a bodyguard, or he would be teaching MMA or self-protection or whatever like that, right? And I didn't know that about him for a while. But that raging dude was raging right at me. He's like 2 feet away from me, and then all of a sudden he just raises up, right? I'm like, what the hell? And this guy Adam had him. He had him in a rear naked chokehold. This guy's feet, and Adam was a big old dude, and the other guy's feet were probably 3 feet off the ground. And he kept taking his right and left hand and tapping Adam's arm that was around his neck and looking like a guppy, because he would like tap and toop, 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 toop.
So I assume he was like trying to fight it, not like tap out.
No, he wasn't trying to tap out. He wasn't doing anything. He was trying to suck in what little bit of air he could suck in. And Adam's like, what do you want me to do with him? I was like,
choke him out.
Yeah. I was like, take him out front. He's like, you don't want him to go out the back door? And I was like, no, man, all these bouncers will beat his ass, dude. He just slapped Brian. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah. Let's take him out front, and I'm going to run him off. And, because I remember I was outside. It was just me and him at the time. Everybody else is inside. And he's like, oh, all of a sudden you're not afraid of me? And I was like, dude, there are 5 guys right by that door ready to come out here and Bailey your ass in our parking lot. I was like, they're not allowed to do that. They're waiting for me to give them permission to do that. You're going to be the first one. It's like, can I make a call? And I'm like,
lawsuit.
Yeah, I'm going to be the first one. I did tell some of them, what you going to do, call the police? I'm like, no, we're going to call an ambulance. We don't call the police here. But I found the best way to 99% of the time resolved all situations was when I said to him, you're not in trouble. Because like I said, I always caught there before anything happened. Right?
Uh-huh.
As soon as I tell them that, they would automatically calm down. And then I had my spiel of like, look, man, we don't want to scare the women. All these women are in here. We don't want to scare them. Why you want to do that? I was like, I tell you what, won't you do this for me? We'll be friends. You leave tonight, and you come back in here tomorrow night. I will cover your cover charge, and I'll buy your first drink. But all you got to do is go home for the night. And they always left. And they always came back the next day and thanked me, because they were like, man, I've been kicked out of everywhere. I should have been kicked out of here last night, but you didn't kick me out. And I was like, you didn't do anything wrong, dude. I mean,
that is a good diffuser. Because that is like the instant go-to when stuff starts to get ruckus. I'm calling the cops! Instantly.
Yeah, I'll be like, no, man, you're not in trouble. I could look at 2 guys staring at each other across the bar. I had people that were regulars would tell me, hey, that dude just had sex with that dude's wife. They might be a fight. And I'll look up and I'll see both of them staring at each other. You know, so I go
Another
walk.
shot of tequila.
Yeah, I go walk over there and diffuse it. Like, dude, you're not in trouble. I get what's going on here. I get it, but we can't have that. My rule is we do not scare the women. I was like, you've been in here before? You like all the women in here? They're like, yeah.
That is a good rule, too.
Yeah, also another rule was the bathrooms, especially the women's bathrooms, were kept spotless. And women's they're nasty. So, keeping them spotless.
With the women that patron the bar?
Any bar, it seems like women's bathrooms are always just, ew.
And they're always picky about it. They're like, the bathrooms there are gross. It's like, well, it's your kind's fault.
Yeah, well, I would have had them, they were all nice and clean. I had mirrors up. Most of them like it, but, you know, some drunk girl goes in there and gets freaky. I'm like, really? You got to spray all over the wall? Dudes don't do that. Dudes will pee all over everything. You know? But they are usually not pooping on the wall.
Ugh.
But I think what it is women are more apt to not sit on the toilet.
Exactly, yeah.
I think I'll put that together.
Like, it's gross in here. I'm just going to stand up and hope this works out. They make it worse.
I got a promotion cleaning up a ladies' bathroom at a Red Lobster way back when I was young, and a bouncer, or not a bouncer, a busser.
Bouncer at a Red Lobster, that'd be in the hood.
But like, damn. Well, that was back in the day. It was nice.
Yeah, it used to be a fancy place.
Yeah, it was back when it was fancy, but some girl went in there. I remember walking in there, and I was like, no, I quit. Manager's like, what? I was like, no, man, I bust tables. I don't know. No. I'll do anything. I was like, anything? She's like, yeah. I was like, I'll go do it. You make me a server. She's like, okay. I was like, alright. You know, went in there and cleaned it up.
One-time deal.
But I was like, oh my God. And actually, I did go back probably 6 months later and clean up another one for her.
Jeez.
And I did it for free. Because she kept her word and made me a good waiter, you know, and didn't mess with me. I'm like, okay, I got this one. We're even.
Tell you what, I cleaned porta potties last spring, summer. That's a good experience.
I had a friend of mine whose mom and dad owned a porta potty company out in Moab, Utah, and I thought they had the cleverest name for their porta potty. It was called Prairie Dog.
Jeez, yeah, the one I worked for was called Honey Bucket. Equally gross.
But I love Prairie Dog. I thought that was funny. I grew up in my hometown. They were called Johnny on the Spot.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, too. My biggest problem with them was when I had to work in downtown Denver and stuff because of the homeless people. They just like, you'd figure that's their only bathroom. You'd think they would take care of it, but they just freaking destroy them. Throw all these anything they can throw in the toilet, they do. Clothes. One time I pulled out like a briefcase. It's like, what are you doing? Why do you think this should go in the toilet?
Yeah, I'm like, man, you have no social skills. That's why you're an idiot.
Like, I almost got in a fight with a couple of them a couple times because, like, I would do the same toilets over and over, and I would come to a toilet where I knew it was like beat up, and like if they were beat up, we would call them in, but the ones the city pay for let them like get like destroyed before they pay for them, and so I came up to one. I knew there was no seat in there, and I was like knocked on it, and the dude's in there, and I'm waiting, and finally, I'm like, dude, I'm like, I know there's no seat in there. I was like, get out of the bathroom. And he comes out and he's like trying to like, you know, get on my face, and he's like, what's your manager's number? I'm gonna call him. I'm like, yeah, you do that. It's like, let's see how far this goes. I wanted to tell him, I almost said like, you don't even have a phone. And I was like, I don't want to actually fight this guy. That might set him off because we were going back and forth for a minute, and I don't want to try to fight too many bums.
No, but, that don't work out either. One
of the weirdest things I'd seen was I kept seeing like burn foil in the bathroom. I'm like, oh, they're just, smoking crack or whatever. But then I was talking to a lady at Subway, and she had told me that no, they weren't smoking crack. They're smoking fentanyl off that foil. And fentanyl is a huge problem around here, and all the bums are friggin' wasted smoking fentanyl.
Fentanyl.
Pretty gross.
Here's a little smelling job. I went to, was working in this giant warehouse in Clearwater, and it's pretty much empty, and we got a bathroom in it, and we're refurbishing and remodeling and putting up new walls and taking down walls and taking out bathrooms and putting in shower rooms. Anyway, one whole side of it was still mostly not used, and we had a bathroom over there. And the owner, who I was working for, his cousin worked there also. So I go in the bathroom, and was smelled while he was in there. Smelled like burning wire, and so that automatically told me dude was smoking crack. And so I was like, okay. So I did my thing and left, and went out and told his owner, or his cousin also. I'm like, hey man, I don't know what your cousin's doing in the bathroom. Cause he's like, he smoking drugs? I'm like, no.
He instantly knows.
I was like, no, dude, he's not smoking drugs. He's like, well, what's he doing? I was like, he's in the bathroom. It's all locked up and smells like he's burning wire. Smells like burnt wire. And he looked at me.
Toxic smoke.
Yeah. I'm like, but yeah, that was my way of, I didn't want to say your cousin's in there smoking crack.
Yeah.
You
always got to deny that you know what crack smoke smells like, first of all.
Well, I had a friend of mine who, his son-in-law burned up a DeWalt drill.
Oh, yeah.
One night when we were all standing around there. Now, my buddy was used to be a crackhead, and he smelt that wire burning, right? And he was like, man, it's been 3 years since I've smoked crack, and smelling that wire is making my mouth water.
Ugh.
If I wasn't a 3-hour drive from the nearest crack dealer I know, I would go get some right now, dude. I want to smoke it so bad. I was like, damn, dude. Like I always said, I was like, man, I'm just way too lazy to have a drug problem.
Crack is friggin' super short high, too. That's why, I wouldn't say it makes sense, but it's understandable why people get addicted to meth, because it's a long high and it's cheap. So it's not hard to get even when you're poor. But crack was kind of expensive because it was coke, and the high was 15 minutes, I've been told, or maybe less than that. 5 minutes or something.
I don't know. They were always chasing the dragon after that, baby. That was heroin, and they were always chasing
their first high.
Yep, and they never got it.
Yeah.
And then I would watch idiots crawling around looking for crack in the carpet.
How much effort are you going to put in?
I got pulled over one night for being out real late in Moab, coming out of the desert. Local police pulled me over at 3 o'clock in the morning in town. And he's like, you know why I pulled you over? And I'm like, no, dude. Normally, I like to have an answer for that question. Like tail lights out, or I didn't use a blinker. But no, dude, I don't know. He's like, well, you were doing 20 and a 25. And he's like, now that's not illegal.
Seems suspicious.
Yeah, that was pretty much what he was saying. He's like, your turn. And I remember I did turn slow because I was kind of following him, or he went another direction. I was seeing where he went. So I kind of slowed in my turn.
You were behind him?
He was ahead of me.
Yeah.
Not real close. we're probably
It's even weirder than
70 yards away from each other. And so he turned around and came and pulled me over. So he was like, yeah, we get a lot of people out here with drug problems, out doing things. And I was like, all right, dude. I was like, stop. And he's like, what? I was like, I'm going to have to be honest with you. I wish I could afford a drug problem. I got a electric bill problem. I got a water bill problem. I got a house payment problem.
It's like, yeah, this guy's sober.
I want a drug problem, dude, but I can't afford one.
You're probably familiar with where Grand Junction is it? Are you?
Yeah. That was like a right about a 2-hour drive from Moab. That was our big city to go to.
There's not much in between those two towns, is there?
No.
Yeah,
no, not unless you know you're not going to run into anything.
That town's got like major meth problems right now, for sure.
And that's a shame. It was a pretty little town back in the 80s. Downtown was neat.
I think it's still pretty cool, but I just have heard from a few people that it's serious meth issues there.
Well, there's a college town, there's a VA, and they're all right downtown together, too. They're not real far apart. I imagine there's homeless around there somewhere. Yeah,
there's tons of homeless here. They're really empathetic and like really relaxed on all the counties set different drug laws, but like I was talking about downtown Denver, the drug laws down there are ridiculous, like so laxed. You can have 3.5 grams of cocaine or almost any drug, and they just take it away from you. You have an eighth of like anything, basically.
Just let you go.
Yep, they're like, hey, no, that's you can't have that. Give me that.
Yeah. I personally think people ought to be able to do whatever drugs they want to do.
Oh, I think personal freedom kind of thing, yeah, but they support these people too. That's the major problem, is they're giving out a lot of aid to these mentally ill people downtown. There's tents everywhere.
Well, see, and they need to put their asses somewhere else. They need to put them in one of those FEMA camps, make them a little village, and the idea is to get them straightened up and out of there.
They got those camps around town, too. Like little, like, luxury tents and stuff. I think there's, like, no drug rules there.
Right, I'm sure that works.
I mean, they definitely seem more like less mentally ill homeless people. Honestly, I cleaned some of those too, and the people in there seemed like they were maybe actually trying to get their lives going somewhere.
Well, cool. There's always that. Some people need a hand.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't. Where am I going with this? They weren't nice, but they were like dealing with the homeless people. I always tell my daughter that same thing about most, 99% of the people that are living on the streets there don't have to be. And then one day I gave one a hand and helped him out. And I told her, I was like, they're not all a waste of time. I was like, but 99% you got to be careful of, because they're not good people.
And they're lying.
Yeah. And it was like, I just like interacted with him because I seen that he had a flat tire on his bike, and I was talking to him about it, and we talked for a second, and like almost always when you talk to those people, it's, can you help me at this point? And he was just like, oh, I'm just doing this and this, and I was like, he never asked for help, and I was like, I seen he needed a tire eventually, and I was like, what size is that tire? And he's like 26, and I was like, I got one at my house, and it was like right by my house. I was like, come over there and I'll give it to you. So like came over and we talked for a while, and my daughter was sitting here while it was going on, and you could tell he was a good dude. He said he moved away from downtown because he had a drug addiction and he couldn't kick drugs because he was living downtown with the druggies. I was instantly like, see, like, this dude is actually trying to fix his life.
Yeah, it's like a buddy of mine's daughter who's been on it all for many years now. and she can't get past all the people she hangs around with. She can't do it. You know, and me and her father have... we've gone into crack houses or meth houses, drug houses, and drug her out of there. That was fun.
I have a lady friend who's... Oh, so sorry.
Well, we had my buddy was a little worried about the numbers and the danger. And I was like, dude, these are all crackheads, meth heads. He's like, yeah. I'm like, man, we work, we eat right, we're in physical good conditions, you know. I was like, you know, at that time we were pounding nails with hammers. You know, I was like, I'm not worried about some meth head. You know,
as long as they don't swarm. Usually they're not very organized.
Yeah. And after we came through, we had a couple baseball bats. I remember like smacking a baseball bat by some guy's head real loud, and he about pissed his pants, and he pointed up to where we needed to go.
Leave me alone. Go over there.
I'm like, dude.
Just trying to get high. You're ruining my buzz.
I will eat you.
That's pretty scary when you're on hardcore drugs. Can you believe it? This guy's actually gonna eat me.
Yeah, it was dark, and we walked right on in and grabbed her and come out. There's some of them mouthy. Turn around, point a baseball bat at them. They sit back down. Like, dude. And I played baseball my whole life. I could have quite possibly been the worst baseball hitter at the plate. But otherwise, I had mad baseball skills. My favorite pitch was the 3-2 pitch, right? I'd look over to my third base coach and he'd tell me it'd be the 3-0 pitch. And I'd look over at him and he'd give me the take, right? Like, hopefully they'll throw a ball and I'll walk to first. Yeah. Well, I've played enough baseball to know the next pitch was going to be a fastball right down the middle. Right?
Pissed when they don't swing on 3-0.
And so I would just like line right in it, man. Pow! Knock at. I was
always really good when I was down in the count or early in the count, and I hit a lot of like first pitch hits.
I had played with like the same group of guys. Mark Neal, I grew up with him and his brother, and we were good friends, but we were on different teams at this point in our life, and we messed with each other, right? He was like the catcher of this team, so he's a little loopy anyway, right? A little crazy. And
consistent. Catchers are always loopy.
But he would give me my pitches. I could turn around, talk to him. I'm like, hey, Mark, can you give me a fastball? He's like, okay, man. You know, he loved me. So I'd get a fastball, and I'd smack it, and he'd always run the first base with me. Every time I took off the first base. Yeah, he'd run right beside of me the whole way. But, you know, we grew up. He was a couple years older than me. I looked up to him, right? He had this real crazy brother, Jimmy. Real crazy. He's in my grade. Scared most of the people in there. I could barely get along with him, right? So Mark comes over and he's like, hey, man, I need you to do me a favor. And I'm like, what? This is like in 9th grade. I need you to get my brother socially acceptable. And I'm like, what?
It's not a favor.
What? You know, I could barely get along with him. I'm like one of the few people who can barely get along with him. I think he wants to punch me, but doesn't know how I'm going to react. But anyway, I would come over in the morning, pick him up, take him to school, try to get him going on. Because I remember he's like, fuck you, I ain't going with you. And I'm like, dude, you're going with me. Mark asked me to do this. You know, you're an asshole. We're going to try to make you not an asshole anymore.
This is like a year-long project at least, though, probably.
It was a little while. Anyway, he was an epic failure at it. He did not like people. And so he eventually went away, and I got props for trying to help him out, right? And so it was probably about 10 years later, I run into old Mark and was like, hey, man, how's your fucking brother Jimmy? He's like, oh, man, he died in a knife fight in a bar.
Jeez.
I was like, oh, man. I was like, I knew that's how he was going to go out, dude. I knew that's how it was going to happen.
I've played out this scenario a million times in my head. He
was going to fight fair. He wasn't going to ever have a weapon, and he was kind of scary, so he would have been a hell of an athlete.
Yeah, it's always disappointing when you see people like that could have directed their craziness towards another angle.
Yeah, what a waste.
I knew this one dude who was like this amazing football player when he played in flag football, and I was like, dude, why don't you play in high school? He's like, fuck that, I want to get high anyways. Okay.
Now, normally,
I mean, we played in a really good like semi-pro flag football league, and he was in high school still, and he was just like, nah, I don't care. And he would go out there and just like, without trying, dominate.
Right. Well, like when it came to baseball, I was like a player coach, right? Like I played in what they called the Babe Ruth League. So I was playing against people I grew up with and people around me that I competed with in other sports, right? Playing these baseball games. And I had part of a team, and I went and recruited the rest of the team, and I recruited the Bad News Bears. We would have kicked the Bad News Bears' ass.
And weren't they kids?
They were kids, but we were kids. We were probably in 11th grade.
Yeah, because it wasn't high school. It was what grade?
We were probably about 11th grade, but we were...
11th grade?
Yeah.
And there was that like an actual league?
Yeah, it was Babe Ruth. It was like a summer league for baseball players.
Okay, in high school? It was like a...
It wasn't a high school team.
Yeah.
It would have been...
Like, I'm trying to think of the name, because they have something like that now.
It probably would have been like the...
I don't know what it's called.
Eastern... something was like the other thing. But I'd talk to all these different guys I grew up with, and most of them didn't like each other. But I knew them all. I knew their talents. I knew everything about them and what I could get out of them on a baseball field, right? If we could just keep our shit together. And I even had a guy named Tracy Burgess. Tracy Burgess had the feathered hair, right? And he had the big old comb in his back pocket, even in his baseball uniform. And he usually had two really tall, pretty girls with him wherever he went. He was like really cool. He was too cool for the rest of us. One? Yeah, always more than one girl. And he was like super cool. He was cooler than the coolest other people in school. You know how you have your popular crowd?
Yep.
Yeah, he was like way above them. And
solid group.
Yeah, and I was friends with everybody, so I talked him into playing baseball. And I remember my pitch was because he said something. He's like, "Well, dude, you're not really a good baseball player." And I'm like, "Man, I got skills." I was like, "But yeah, you're right." I was like, "I'm going to play right field." You know, like right field. If you play right field, your next position is the bench. You know, usually,
exactly.
Usually you get your worst player over in the right field. That's where I played. You know, and I was like, but I knew Tracy Burgess. I was like, "You're going to play center field." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "So you can cover most of me." You know,
in right field.
Yeah. As you know, and then I knew that I didn't have an arm to throw from right field to home plate. But I knew when Tracy Burgess was standing there beside of me, running over there to me, because he was so damn fast, he could be right by me in no time, that I could just toss him a ball, and he could throw from center field all the way to home plate. or second base or third base. He just had that kind of talent. This was the kind of guy he was. When Tracy Burgess slid into third or second base, he stood up. He was clean. He'd pull his comb out of his back pocket and start combing his hair.
Comb on him?
Yeah.
One of those little black ones?
No, it was actually a yellow one.
Okay.
A big old giant yellow comb.
Hilarious.
And then he would get out of the game and there'd be those two girls out there. Yeah, that was we had fun. We didn't lose. We did not lose, and when we showed up, we looked like a ragtag bunch of people. But I had special skills. And by that meant I could sit at second base and talk to a guy I knew and talk to him about the other guy, the shortstop over there, and knowing that he'd been having sex with his girlfriend. He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, Bobby, Chris has been sleeping with your girlfriend." And I remember Bobby throwing his glove down, running right over to the shortstop, and started punching on him, and I walked to third base. I was like, "Ah, sucker."
You had to be holding on to that for a minute, waiting for the ultimate opportunity.
Oh, yeah. But, like I said, I grew up with these guys. I knew them. I knew every failing about them. Like I played against them in Little League on different teams. I watched them all. By the time my junior year doing this league, I was reading the third base coach's signals. I knew by the third inning everything that guy was telling the batter to do or anybody on the field to do.
Reading signs, that helps.
And I remember one of them coming over and telling me I was cheating. I'm like, "No, I'm not."
I just know what he's saying.
It might be immoral, but it is not cheating, dude. You can come up with different codes and make me work it more.
Yeah. You should change them every now and then.
Well, yeah, I'd sit there and watch him and see what happens when he did things and see what people did. And, all I had to do is find that one little spot where, I'm going to hit this spot and the next thing is going to be what I want you to do. Bunt, take, whatever, Steal. Because I'll be like sitting there in the dugout going, "Hey man, he's going to steal."
It seems like he knows our signs.
Yep. I remember old Joe Payton come over. He was a big old daddy too, you know what I'm saying? Cussing at me. Thought he might slap me, but I was like, "No dude, I am not cheating. Not in our playbooks. I'm allowed to do that."
No, it's only cheating, I think, if you tell... I guess when you were telling them that they were going to steal, maybe that's... I'm not sure what the line's at there, but I know you're not allowed to steal signs.
I wouldn't say I was stealing them. I was just sitting there watching the third baseman.
I know, but remember, I don't know if you remember. I know a few years ago the Astros got in trouble for the same thing, but I don't know what the stipulations are.
Well, they probably changed the rules because of me.
That makes sense. All the way up to the pros.
Yeah.
Like this guy's got
there have been rules in America that have been changed because of me. Yep. I could, it's been a long time. I had like a little, we'll call it a credit card fraud thing going on.
You're not a trick, a loophole?
I found a little something in things, and I should have gone to prison. But as it turned out, I had done such a spectacular job at, defeating their security that they did not want anybody to know that this dumbass had just robbed him. They would rather
like
take the bite and not tell anybody what happened.
Like that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio when he's a check frauder and he ends up working for like the FBI at the end. Because we're like, you're actually really good. You know all the tricks. You should work for us.
You should work for us. No, mine was unique. It was a one-time thing kind of thing. I can get away with it now. But honestly, I didn't get away with it. I was caught, but they're like, the banks don't want to prosecute. They'll have to tell the shareholders what happened. I'm like, great.
That works out. So I don't need that money. So let's give me my freedom still.
Yeah, I got to keep everything. Most of it was gone. I remember my dad saying, "What'd you do with that?" And I was like, "I greased the wheels." And he knew what I meant.
So they always, what is it, like, easy money is easily lost?
Yeah, well, I made sure the right kind of people got money from me.
That makes a crime like kind of Robin Hood-ish.
Well, I had the kind of people that got money from me would be like looking out for me later. Like I just did them a favor. Like, cool. I'm like, I've just greased the wheel. I can get away with a lot more crap now.
Got a lot of credit.
And but honestly, I thought I was going to prison. I remember before I left that day, I told my dad everything, right? And I was like, so he's like, you think you're going to prison? I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're going to
either see you later or see you a lot later.
No, we would have had a lawyer. I was in my hometown. I'd already greased the palms. That money was already gone. But then, that happened. I remember walking out of there thinking, when they're like, okay, everything's done. I'm like, everything's done? I can leave? I can walk out of here? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. They're going to arrest me in the hallway. Got in the hallway, nobody there. I was like, okay. I walked to the elevator. I'm like, okay, they're going to arrest me at the elevator in the lobby. I got down there. Nobody. Okay, they must all be outside the door. I walk outside the door. There's nobody anywhere around the sidewalk. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I don't know what you just did to these people, but thank you. Not that I was being very Christian, but I did have faith, but I think I felt good doing what I was doing there, to be honest with you. I thought I was taking advantage of the absolute right people to take advantage of. Like, I wasn't robbing you, per se. I was robbing major credit card companies. Affiliated with banks. It wasn't a real long thing. And I probably did it like 2 times too many when I would have been okay. I was being greedy, and I knew I was being greedy, but I was wanting to do something. I can't remember now. And I did it. I got my money. But I was never denied money. Money, 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 money. I thought this podcast was going to go a whole lot different.
There was no direction.
Well, I pulled up...
It's pretty easy, though.
I pulled up the news on Google. Let's, unless there's something in the marijuana thing you need to get in there real quick.
Nope.
You got any...
I've got a lot of weed talk, but nothing that's relevant currently.
Okay. All right. I told one about the Huntington Vice the other night on Guy Fawkes, I think. We might come back. The Huntington Vice.
Oh, the cops?
Yeah. Coming to the hotel I worked in. We were talking about my hometown is called Little Detroit.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
I
I've
know.
been to Detroit a lot.
And there was a Detroit crack dealer that would come to this hotel I worked in. And I always charged him like way too much and pocketed the rest, right? I would get the hotel, whatever the room charge was, and put 2 or 3 times more than that in my pocket. And let him have a room. And he'd been doing that for a while. And I was assuming he was bringing crack down to sell to my hometown, but I didn't know. But I could make money off of him. And one night, after smoking some very kind weed, some Afghanistan indica, that name there.
Afghan. that was the stuff of legend at that time.
Yeah, I had a 3-year run on that weed. It was awesome. It was a medicinal weed out of some laboratory in Florida that I learned how to clone, and yeah, it was awesome. But anyway, I'd smoked a couple hits of that.
Is a thing of legends.
And stood back behind the front desk because it was like a little after 2. I'd finished the night audit, and that's why I was smoking weed, because I was done doing what I was doing until 7 o'clock in the morning. And some hippie, dirty-looking guy walks up with a big chain around his neck and a big old gold badge, telling me he's a Huntington Vice and he's looking for my guy, right? And he's like, I need you to tell me what room he's in. I'm like, I can't tell you what room he's in. That's our whole thing here. Telling you what room they're in, you know? And
it's kind of part of the deal.
yeah, so he's like, okay, I'm coming back. Don't go anywhere. I'm coming back with a search warrant. And I'm like, okay.
That works for me.
So I walked over to my little hidden compartment and called that dude and told him he had to go. And he's like, thank you, and left. And never saw him again. But it was this giant hotel. And then in my hometown,
sketchy.
If the local bands, or not local bands, but out-of-town bands would show up, they'd stay there under pseudonyms or different fake names.
Yeah.
That took me a minute to figure out. So I remember I partied with a band called Firehouse one night. I got them baked.
They're probably happy.
Yeah, because he's like, oh no, dude, I smoke really good weed. And I was like, dude, I got the shit that killed Elvis.
Only person to ever die from weed is Elvis. Little known fact.
I was like, I got it. And the smoke, that was that Afghanistan indica. And he was baked. That dude, the lead singer of Firehouse, was checking people in and out at that hotel that night.
You let him do your job?
Oh, yeah. I showed him how to do it.
He wanted to do it. It's like, this is fun. Real people stuff. I'm like one of the working men.
Well, you know what? We exchanged numbers, and he used to call me a bunch from different concerts and different women on there talking to me, and it was kind of wild, and then it just got kind of boring. I'm like, all right.
Listen, man, I can't do this long-distance friendship thing.
Yeah. But it was kind of cool. But I remember he was like, Firehouse. I'm like, you mean the fire station? I was like, that's 2 blocks that way.
Oh, it's the band. It's like this guy.
Yeah, he was there.
See, it was like blowing off a chick. He was instantly like, I kind of like this guy. I don't know why. Should be friends.
Yeah, they were like the opening band for like, I don't know, Bon Jovi or something like that night.
Seems like they had a couple hits. I remember hearing the name before, but I don't know any of their songs.
I didn't know who they were. I remember telling them, like, y'all, anything like Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd? Like, no. And I was like, all right, well, that's about where I'm at, baby.
I like Firehouse Subs now. They're pretty good.
So, well, on a completely different note, how about, and I don't know his name, old dude from the Bills-Giants game getting...
Oh, yeah. I don't know his name either. I think it's Harmon something? I want to say Darren Harmon, but I don't know if that's right.
DeMar Hamlin.
Oh, okay, I see. I had a D and an H, didn't I? There he is, DeMar Hamlin, yeah. What did I say? Something similar. Some other black name.
Breathing tube removed. Buffalo safely FaceTimes the Bill. I love you, boys, he says. I didn't see the hit.
You haven't seen it?
No.
I have a video. I can send it to you. It's really not violent looking at all.
Well, somebody was talking about putting a highlight clip of John Lynch's hit.
God.
And they're like, he was hitting people.
A certain one, or yeah, you watch any of those older safeties, the highlights of them, they're just like, it's understandable why. I think football players' lives are extending a little bit, but I know the stat used to be like they only lived to 53, most of them on average, and you watch some of those old highlights, and it's like, yeah, I see why.
Oh yeah,
I mean they hit hard now, but it's just like it seemed like there was like no penalties either. You see like quarterbacks taking insanely late, brutal hits.
Yeah, well, talking about Tom Brady, we were talking about him here with a local Tampa Bay fan, and he was talking about how awesome, Montana, or not Montana, but Tom Brady running with the ball. And I'm like, yeah.
Running with the ball?
I'm like, he wouldn't have been doing that at 45 with Lyle Alzado on the field.
Jeez. There's in like 2000, it had to be like 2002 or 3. He took this hit in Buffalo, I think. I want to say it was Buffalo. I can't remember who it was from though, but his helmet goes flying off in the hit. Like a hit that they would probably eject the guy for now. I always play that. I'm like, man, this is so brutal. I'll try and send you that too, because it's frightening.
Well, I grew up from like, I don't know, first grade playing football.
Yeah, I played forever.
And our coaches were always about hurting the other team. There were like no mercy.
I just think there's like more speed now, so the hits are maybe a little worse. I don't know. I know they protect the players more, but like the games come across as two different things, and I think it's because of the speed. Because everybody's so fast now.
Well, I know speed wasn't my thing.
Then, but
that was not my thing. But I had great technical skills, so I know how to lay a hit into you. So, always had the good technical skills like basketball. And my basketball game was awesome because of the crap talking. I'd get those people so mad, dude. And I had some unorthodox
that is a key part.
methods too. And one of them, people hated it, man. They'd want to punch me in the face. They'd slap my hand too, and they'd get a foul called on it. But I'd stick my hand right up in front of their face, as close as I could get it.
That was one of my dad's tactics.
And I'd keep it right in front of their hand or in their face, and then I'd take my other hand, and it would follow the ball. And man, they just get mad.
That's hilarious. I remember my dad always doing that too. And then when games were getting, he'd play basketball here and there, but I remember him a couple of games when they were getting like actually kind of a little serious. He would do that, and I could see it totally piss people off. And it's like, I'm not touching this. This is legal, and he played good defense too. So,
I was
like
a good
infuriating.
Yeah.
I was like, Dad, I kind of like at the time, like kind of like felt like he was a little bit of a jerk, but then later I was like, that was awesome.
You know, and I was the type of player, like, I couldn't run down and set up and shoot a 3-point, but if you're guarding me and I'm outside the 3-point and you stop and you step back a couple steps away from me to give me the shot, and I got like a bounce or two in, and then I could sink it then.
Yep.
You know, I'd be like, oh, you're going to let me set up? Well, okay. I can do this.
Shooting drill.
But to like just come down with the ball and stop and shoot, no. Or at the foul line. I was good at the foul line.
It's a place where everybody should not miss from, basically 7 out of 10 times, hopefully.
So that was good, and we never lost. We were real good. And the same guys I grew up with, they played high school basketball, but I played high school wrestling, and that was at the same time.
Yeah, you had to make a decision.
Yeah. And I liked wrestling because it was all on me. If I lost, it was me. There wasn't anybody else to blame. And I didn't like losing anyway. I was competitive. And like I said, I've always hated those damn unitards they make us wear. Hated that.
Yeah, like, some of the manliest men are in wrestling, but that was always my problem with it, was man on man.
Yeah, so I always tried to make my rounds as quick as possible. I can't remember going to the third round, but maybe once or twice.
They didn't have it at my high school when I was there either, so it was never an option.
I'm like, no. I was all right. I got trophies. I wasn't an athlete, but I was a good student. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I wasn't an athlete, but I believed I could do whatever anybody else did. Except I could not ever throw a 70-yard football.
No, if you can throw a football 70 yards, you're pretty good.
Now, I had some friends that were...
You can throw like one of those Nerf turbos.
I had some really talented people that I played with. A lot of them went on to become coaches in college that I went up against. But I remember, like I said, I played right field in my hometown, but I went out to Utah for a season and qualified for the center field, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not center field. But then I realized the caliber of guys that I had been playing with and growing up with, and the teams that we were playing were just so much better caliber than these people here where I was at. And I was like, oh, okay. All right.
I'm actually kind of good, actually.
I'm actually really good. If I was at just, here, I'm the center.
Yeah.
Center
over
fielder.
There, I'm just a guy. Over here, in this field, I'm a superstar, basically.
Yeah, back home, I'm either going to play right field or sit the bench. But out here, no, I'm cool. Yeah, that was fun. All right, let's do a couple headlines real quick. What do you think?
Yeah, that's like the third time we said we were going to.
How about Kevin McCarthy loses the House speakership vote for the 14th time?
When was the first time they voted on it? Was it recent? That 14 is happening like over and over?
Like a couple days ago.
That's what I thought. Revote. Okay.
I'm like, I don't care for him, but I don't know how that is, and I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not informed enough to really be saying who should be voting for who. But, if you don't like the guy, don't vote for him.
Yeah, I guess I never really knew the total process of that, but it almost seems like there should just be a couple people up for vote, and then they vote for who they want to vote instead of yes, no's. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard that somebody threw up Donald Trump's name.
Speaker.
So,
Can anybody be it?
Yeah, anybody can be it.
Okay, so you don't have to be like... I thought it had to be like a senator or congressman.
You'd think it should be. I mean, I think it always has been, but as far as I know. How about this one, Stranger Things? Are you familiar with the old Netflix Stranger Things? Looks like
date.
Noah, what was his name? Snap comes out as gay.
Me and John have been talking about that for a while, about how annoyed we are with the little plots they're inserting with like stuff like that.
Well, I was just kind of pulling as him being sensitive. I remember talking about that with John. John's like, no, he's gay.
Yeah, as soon as he told me about that part at the beginning, because I remember watching it, and then when he mentioned it about him recoiling when that girl like touched him, he's like, I think they're trying to make him gay, and I was like, oh yeah. Because I seen a lot of other stuff that was going on, and so I remember that part, and I was like, yeah,
it was a little black girl in class that touched him.
I thought he was just racist.
I'm like, oh, you're a little creep. Well, how about this one?
Will, that's his name, I think.
Yeah, Will. He I guess the star or the...
I don't like him. I think the star is probably that Mike kid, and it's actually probably that kid with the funny teeth, Dustin.
Dustin is my favorite.
I think he got his teeth fixed.
Well, good.
Some weird disorder going on there.
And
I think they were like pointed like kind of like a V.
We had a lisp or something. Teacher shot by 6-year-old with gun in U.S. classroom.
First of all, I'm guessing it was an assault rifle, so we should ban those.
Right.
That's a pretty... was it an accident or the kid coming there shooting?
And that's in Al Jazeera. Let's see. It could be anywhere. I want to say... Nope. Teacher shot by 6-year-old with gun in U.S. classroom.
No, I heard this story, but I didn't... I only heard a piece of it.
Teacher in Virginia. During an altercation inside the first grade classroom.
Jeez. I yelled at him for coloring outside the lines.
No students were injured.
Just pop the teacher.
The teacher was in her 30s, suffered life-threatening injuries.
Injuries. I had to think about it for a second, too. I was like, what's the word?
I was going to say injury or energies. Like, no, that's not right. The Newport police chief said her condition has improved somewhat by late afternoon. Police say the child had a handgun in the classroom and took it out student custody. They arrested the student. The shooting was not an accident. How about that?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, you just instantly got to figure his parents are absolute pieces of garbage, so...
Look at me. I took a Weeble Wobble to school.
I got in trouble for some stuff, but it definitely wasn't packing a pistol at school. I had lots of access to guns, but I was not taking them to school.
Oh, and Mr. Creepy Idaho murder suspect Brian Koberger clean card and was seen wearing surgical gloves. What a loser.
Doesn't sound like a very friendly story.
Yeah. It's kind of sad. It's kind of weird and creepy. Stupid people.
That's why, like, a lot of people don't even watch the news because they're like, it's just all bad stuff. Like, yeah, I don't know what you can have.
Yeah, not a lot of good stuff.
You gotta know what's going on. You gotta know what's going on, even if it's bad stuff. I mean, that's the hard part. You can't just turn it off.
Well, like Denzel said, if you're reading a newspaper, you're misinformed, and if you're not reading if you are reading the newspaper, you're uninformed, and if you're not reading the paper, you're misinformed. Something like that. I can't get it right.
Yeah.
It was a lot cooler when Denzel said it, of course.
It's a lot of the truth now, for sure. You got to be careful where you're getting your news from.
Well, I sit and listened to him say it today, and it was Denzel that said it. Yeah, no, I think what it is, if you're not reading the papers, you're uninformed. If you're reading the papers, you're misinformed. That's how it went.
Yep. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right. But that was Denzel. I heard him himself in an audio. I'm like, it was you, because I remember talking to somebody, and I was like, I think it was Denzel, but I don't know if it was in a movie, but it sounded like he was being interviewed. I didn't see the clip, I just heard the clip. Oh! I was wanting to talk about this with Johnny the other night, and where are we? I threw up his headline, and he's like, "What? What to talk about that?" Pope Francis warns Vatican the devil, an elegant demon, lurks among them.
What?
Yeah, December 22nd, he was speaking to these people at Vatican and telling them that there's demons walking among them. And in there. And then I was like, are you trying to say that whatever's getting ready to happen, you're going to blame on demons? Is that what's happening here? December 22nd.
Confused by the statement.
It was at his annual Christmas meetings to the Roman Curia, where Francis told them, by living in the heart of the Catholic Church, we could easily fall into the temptation of thinking we are safe, better than others, no longer in need of conversion. Yet we are in great dangers than all others, because we are beset by the elegant demon, who does not make a loud entrance, but comes in with flowers in his hands.
That sounds super creepy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like he's being super creepy. It just sounds like whatever is happening is super creepy.
Well,
Antichrist stuff almost.
I was talking to Matthew Miller, who is a Bible expert about demons. And I was like, are they out there now? It's not like, anywhere in the New Testament, they didn't finish and kill all the demons. By the time the end of the New Testament was over, there were still demons as far as I know. And the demons that you run into in the Bible is usually at the end of the town, and they're usually crazy, right? Like Jesus never went into town and found the mayor and cast demons out of him. But they're out there. But could they be? Like these were the demons that were crazy and living out at the end of town and like in tombs and things like that.
I always just kind of assumed that they were still roaming around. Probably not as much as the angels, but I never really thought of it, but I always kind of just assumed that we are constantly surrounded by good and evil.
In my lifetime, and I've been from one end of America to the other and up and down it, and I've met maybe 2 evil people in my whole time. One of them died not long after I met him, but he was evil, and the other one's still evil.
Yeah. And then, like that same breath, like with the being surrounded by good and evil, I always like to emphasize that you got to invite the evil to be part of your presence before it's just going to show up. Though it doesn't. It's kind of like the old vampire thing. You got to like invite them in. They can't just come in. You got to let them know you're cool with them.
Yeah, I would definitely didn't let them know I was cool with them.
No, it's a bad idea.
One of them, the bigger, baddest one that was alive and still is alive, he might be dead now, but I was sitting on a milk crate when he came up and told me he was going to kill me. And I laughed. And he was like, "You think you're funny?" And I'm like, "No, dude." I was like, "But I do know one thing. I'm going to own your knee," because I turned around and I looked right at it when I was sitting on this neat milk crate, and I turned around, his knee's right there. Like, I'm going to grab that leg and own it. You can beat on me or whatever, but I told him, I was like, "You will never walk right again." I was like, "I might be retarded, but you'll never walk right." And he turned around and walked away from me. Nothing happened. But his knee was like 6 inches away from my face. I'm like, I will own it. I will make this knee do things that you didn't know it could do. And I know how to do it. I didn't tell him all that. But
Not walking good, again, is a threat you want to take into consideration. Yeah, you do need to walk eventually.
And he was one of those great big guys, and he didn't really have those big legs either. My brother was sitting there when that happened, and he's like, "I don't know why you say things like that to people." And I was like, "Man, he was going to kick my butt. What else was I going to say?" He's like, "I don't know how that stuff works for you." I'm like, "God loves me."
Yep.
I'm like, I didn't come up with that. I was just, that's what I came up with, I guess.
Just popped up. I didn't even make sense at the time, but it just came out.
It came out. Dude knew that his knee was going to be mine. I think I had just a little bit of a reputation that he knew.
You said the same thing, like, about that when you were telling that story about being in the alley or whatever, and you were gonna. You said you were like surrounded by a bunch of people, and you had to fight like the leader of a gang or something. Wasn't that you?
I did one in Florida.
And like
I did a gang.
You asked him some weird question and instantly diffused the fight.
Oh,
I thought that
the
was
one
you.
in the bar.
Yeah,
There was one in the bar, Ivan. That was one where it was a crazy guy. When my question to him was, when I finally got out to him, was, well, do you want to go out in the parking lot and wrestle around? Or do you want a hug? And he like ran at me and gave me a big giant hug before I could move. And he became a real good buddy of mine.
and like you said like because I heard you say it before. Like you said you said something, and later you were like, I'm not even sure why I said that. It just like came to me.
Right.
It's like the same. That does sound almost like divine intervention stuff. Like
I've asked guys too that wanted to kick my butt. That I'm like, "Hey man, you got insurance?" And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "You got health insurance?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, why are you going around picking a fight with people you don't even know?" I was like, I don't have insurance either, dude. And I can't afford a trip to the emergency room, so I can tell you how this is going to go. You know, I'm not going to the emergency room. I can't afford to go there. Is this what you want to do? And they just turn around and walk away, and I'm like, cool, thank you, Jesus.
Say exactly the right thing that hits home to a certain person. The exact situation you need to.
I'm like, sure, you might be able to kick my butt, but... Well, and another, my ultimate badass moment, I thought, because I had an audience of a guy that I respected as a complete badass, Kaz. He had known that I'd knocked a dude out in his bar with a pool stick one night. And I'd been going into that bar for years. And he get real pissy about people fighting in his bars. So the next night I walked in and was like, hey, Kaz, man, I didn't start this fight, but I broke one of your pool sticks. And about these guys. And he was like, man, screw that guy. I don't care what he did. He's like, you've been coming in here for 10 years. You can do whatever you want. He's like, he's like, you can give me $10 for the pool stick, though. And I was like, all right. So a few years,
bar stick.
Yeah, a few years later, he's got a different bar, and he's got this Muslim Iranian dude behind the bar with him that they were kind of buddies with. But me and this Muslim Iranian dude had not gotten along for a couple years. We'd had words, and I had to explain to him that he wasn't in Iran or Iraq or the Middle East. He was in my hometown.
Rules are a little different.
Yeah, but this one night, he was friends with a couple friends of mine, and it was a girl, and a boy that I introduced. Like, I remember when I knew him, and then when I met the girl, I was like, oh, Amanda, I know the perfect dude for you. You two are meant for each other. And they hooked up with each other, right? And so they invited me to this bar. They were going to be at this bar. And they were also friends with this Iranian dude. But when I walked in, the boy wasn't there. Jason wasn't there, but Amanda was, and she gave me a big hug. We sit down and bullshitted, and he came over there and was like, hey, man, that's my buddy's girlfriend, and I don't like you sitting here talking to him. And I was like, dude, leave me alone. And he wouldn't drop it. He was behind the bar. And even Amanda and Jason finally came in. No, man, he's our friend. He's like, no, man. And then he was standing beside a Kaz who knows me, right? He knows where I will go. And so I look at that dude, and I was like, I'll tell you what, here's how this is going to work out tonight. I don't like you, you don't like me, but we need to end this. I was like, so here is the deal. I can buy you a drink, and we can forget about this, and me and you can be buddies. And we'll have a good old time tonight celebrating with Jason and Amanda. And he's like, or we can go spend a weekend in jail together, motherfucker. And he started laughing.
Cellmates.
Yeah, you can go to my hometown and my hometown jail with my hometown brothers in there. Let's go there. And but he starts laughing at Kaz, and he's like, hey, Kaz, can you imagine what this guy just said to me? And Kaz was really good friends with this guy, and he got like a real pissy attitude with him. And he's like, he asked you a fucking question, so you better answer it. And he turned around and was like, I'll take a couple drinks, we can be friends.
Anybody else would be like, that's psychotic. He's like, yeah, you're my type.
But yeah, but old Kaz, though, he knew. He's like, but I loved it when he turned to him. He's like, he asked you a fucking question. My boy here will knock you out with a pool stick. I've seen him, or I know he will. That was a good night, too. That pool stick, here's what happens sometimes when I do go showing off. That pool stick went all the way around that guy's head, right? and it came right back at me and smacked me in the face and broke my glasses and put a big old gash in my eyebrow.
What part did you hit him with it? Like right in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd choked up. I'd
around.
hit him one time, and he didn't even move. I was hitting him in the back, right? And so I choked up, stepped in, was like, BAM! And he dropped like an accordion, and the stick came around and smacked me. I didn't know it was a stick. I thought somebody else hit me until somebody else said that, no, dude, that was a pool stick.
Yeah, in the heat of the moment, you don't even realize it, really.
Because my glasses went flying. I had blood coming down the side of my face. I was like, what in the hell just happened to me? But that was over a buddy of mine. He ended up paying for my new glasses. Because these two dudes were getting ready to kick his ass when I knocked dude out.
Well, you might have saved him a beating then.
Oh, he had it coming too, dude. We were playing these guys a game of pool. They were getting ready to like shoot from one side to the other side, the 8-ball. The only 2 balls on the table. Right? Straight in. And it'd be hard to miss, you know. And my buddy walks over and picks up the pool table, and all, the 2 balls, and the balls start moving. And they turn around and start messing with him, shoving him and smacking him.
Of course.
This was over
a
pitcher of beer is what we would have lost. But, well, we didn't have to get a pitcher of beer.
Just a pool stick.
Just a pool stick and a $300 pair of glasses my buddy forked money out for.
You paid for them?
Yeah, he paid for them. He said
deal.
he was like, dude, oh, you saved my ass. These are on me. Like I said, I did. I saved his ass. But that's our buddies, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a stand-up move.
Like, we were buddies, but all of us buddies, we never like 2 of us standing in front of somebody. There'd be like one of us standing in front of us and the other one standing behind them. Just waiting to see what we were going to do. Or there might be 2 or 3 of us behind them. But those are young, stupid days. I wouldn't do that now. But I also had a way of
doing a little differently,
not fighting.
Yep.
Most all the time. You know, and I didn't beat him with a pool stick or anything, but, you know, I did knock him out. Oh, Kaz.
I'm running out of battery life on my phone. I don't have a way to charge it currently because my headphones are plugged in. I'm at 3%, so we got a couple minutes left at least.
What are we at here? Are we really at 2 hours?
I think so.
No way.
What did we talk about?
What else? How about old Andrew Tate?
Yeah, you guys were talking about that the other night. I looked up his, I think it was the one of the casts I was trying to do. I looked up his record, and it was pretty impressive, kickboxing-wise, for sure. A lot of fights. I think it was maybe in the 70s, and his MMA record was pretty weak, but he got out of jail, didn't he?
I don't know if he did or not. I haven't read that, but I was like,
I think I heard he got released. Yeah, I can look it up.
But my thing is I don't know a whole lot about the guy, to be honest with you, to even post an opinion. But then after I listened to Owen Benjamin, who I'm not all in on him, but he was playing a video on his show, which I didn't see. I was just listening to like a podcast, I suppose. And he was describing Andrew Tate slapping around his girlfriend and going off, and Owen Benjamin was like, man, I'll beat his ass. You don't like him. And that was when I was like, ooh, that'd be I'd pay to see that fight, Andrew Tate and Owen Benjamin.
I think Owen's 6'8", I think. He's got to be 250 plus at least, because he's thick.
Yeah, he's a big
6'8".
old boy.
He's got to look like a giant almost. 6'8" is huge.
Oh, yeah, to me, man, I would be like, get the hell away from me, dude. Go over there and stand.
I've listened to Owen a lot, and sometimes he, like, goes a little hard on things that he shouldn't go on, but, like, at the same time, a lot of times he's right, but he's just a little excessive. I mean, from what I've heard of Andrew Tate, he's not, like, the most wholesome character, but I know he was pushing a lot of, like, pro-masculinity, and a lot of, like, younger men or not even men, like, adolescents, like, 12 to 15 and stuff were really, like, grasping onto it, and so it's like, I don't know how, his message didn't seem real negative, so that, like the positives seemed like they were more than the negative, because he was expressing, a lot of masculinity at a time when it's kind of frowned upon, and I've seen a lot of younger kids, like, grabbing onto it, and that's kind of something that they need at the time, for sure, because they're all turning into bitches.
I'm like, yeah, some of these guys today, wow. They are kind of, I don't know if they're feminine or just afraid of their masculinity. Like, how can I be a man? I'm like, well, I'm a man. I got that covered. So far. Pretty soon I'll be an old man.
Most old men, before they get to, like, the senile stage, are, like, some of the most masculine men for sure. Well established.
Yeah, I'm still in good shape. I can still take off running a sprint. I can run after you.
You just gotta be able to express that image of, I'm old, so you should respect and fear me kind of thing. I'm not fast, but I know a whole lot.
Yeah, I didn't get this far with this mouth by taking ass whippings.
Oh.
So that was one of them. Like, back home, I never took a beating by one guy, or even two guys. Nobody could ever say they stood in front of me and beat me up. So occasionally I would be sitting somewhere in a bar and somebody would walk up and say something like that to me. And I remember a guy one night sitting down right in front of me. I remember passing my glasses off to somebody sitting beside of me. I didn't know if I was going to have to fight him. But he was like, so what makes you think you're such a badass? You whoop everybody. What makes you any different? And I was like, because I get really scared that somebody's going to hurt me. And then I looked at him. I was like, are you going to hurt me?
It's usually the whole motivation of a fight, hopefully. You don't want to get beat up by the other person, so you got to beat them up.
Yeah, I'm like, are you going to hurt me, man? I don't want to get hurt. I get scared, and I don't know if you want to deal with me scared. Dealing with me on a wrestling match, I don't get scared. Here in this bar room, I don't know. And like that guy walked off. I remember one of my buddies. Oh, and yeah, and he did the, and I didn't know it at the time because my friend told me. But he came down, he sat down, and he told me, I've had 500 fights, blah, blah, blah. He goes on to this bullshit or something like that, street fights. And I was like, oh, yeah? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, dude, all the badasses I've known would already thrown a punch by now.
He's got all of his street fighting stats.
Well, and then when he left, he was, my friend was like, dude, he stole that line from Van Diesel in some movie that he was in. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. And then, like, a few years later, I saw that movie, and I was like, yeah, that's what dude said to me.
I was making fun of Vin Diesel earlier.
But yeah, like I said, man, all the badasses I know would already thrown a punch. That was during a Tyson fight.
Oh, jeez.
A Tyson fight with that bar.
He had to prove he was tough then.
Yeah, Tyson hadn't fought yet. And Tyson won in the first round.
Classic Tyson fight.
So that'll take you back to how long ago that was. That was back in my 20s.
My childhood, yeah. Early 80s. I think what Tyson came up in like 86-ish. I was a young kid.
Yeah, so this would probably been about a little later, I think. Probably in the 90s. Because this was a different group of people I was hanging with at the time. But yeah, like I said, that one, he just laughed. Hey, you stole that from Vin Diesel.
He's gay, too. So it's even worse now. Super fake and gay.
Boo. So I never had a problem with gay as long as they were gay.
Yeah, it's
but not in the closet gay.
Definitely, they're not all, but most of them are extra feminine too. So it's just like, you're obviously a good actor because you pretend to be a tough guy and you're gay. You don't like chicks and you're gay. Or no, that's the same thing. You don't like chicks and you can't fight. All right, I got to cut this off because I'm gonna run out of power.
All right, man. We'll try this again sometime.
Yeah. Hopefully, I wanted to try it on this friggin' platform to see if I was going to keep connected this time.
Yeah, I'm on a whole other different thing.
Hopefully, yeah.
I even got video of me on here. Looking pretty. Throwing up my email address, too.
Still underground. I can't, mainly the thing because of, like, I'm a one-woman man and it's tough.
Right on. Women don't want to see that. My honey, she don't care. She don't care one iota about my podcast, except every now and then. When I went in and told her the other day about my subscriptions, people who were watching it, and I was like, I got plenty of people doing it. I was like, but the oddest thing about it is I looked down and I'm like, 8% of my audience is coming from India.
8%? That isn't pretty impressive.
I know. I'm like, that's a lot.
Why am I appealing to so many Indians?
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell? I'm going to pull them up one day. It was like 3 different provinces or cities or states, I don't know, and see if I can call them out their names. And
giving a shout out to my 10% of my fans, basically.
Yeah, send me an email. What the hell are you doing listening to me? I mean, I'm glad you are, but really, all that bored over there in India?
You must connect them for some reason. That's interesting.
Well, I connected with Romanians back when I did radio. And so I was doing radio at like 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning on Mountain Time. And they were listening to it like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Romania.
Prime time.
And
getting royalties.
I'm still friends with a couple of those people. That's crazy. And that's how come I got to know them over the years, and how I know a little bit about Romania. And, which makes me think I'm like, a Romanian put somebody in jail for sex trafficking in a sex trafficking country.
I remember you saying that.
I'm like, that's kind of odd.
That means it's either extra suspicious or he's super guilty.
Yeah, I'm like, huh. What I do know, Romanians, they're gypsies, so you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But we'll see. All right, DB.
Sounds good.
We will. Is there anything you need to do? You got an email?
It's all secret still. I don't want to.
Can you remember Guy Fawkes's email? His is too damn complicated. I remember
MeTV 1157 at MeTV and something like that. It's 11 something.
I think I always went to Anchor and reached out.
I emailed him because I was trying to. He's like, I'm on all those social platforms. I was like, dude, how do you spell your name? So just find me. I'm John Omer Chada. Like, what? Yeah, that's like Smith. Okay, that'll be easy.
Omer Chada. I'm like, okay.
I emailed him. I'm like, dude, I don't know how to spell your name. I can't find you at all. I tried it for like 10 minutes and I gave up.
Like, here's the link. And I've been meaning to tell him that he needs to start off his podcast with talking about his book.
Oh, yeah, that would help.
I think.
There is times when he doesn't mention it at all.
He should definitely throw that in there. Because there's a lot of us dumbass podcasters doing podcasting and very few writing a book. So I would make that more legit, you know what I'm saying?
I'm a horrible reader, so I'm one of the guys that was pushing the audiobook really hard.
Well, I've been wanting to get it for the last 2 years, but I've felt like I'm like a week or two away from grabbing me a not a laptop, but a pad of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't going to get it until I got a pad. I don't want to read it on my phone.
No.
And I just have not gotten around to getting a stupid pad yet. Well, as soon as I do, I'm on it.
See, we're like doing similar things. He's like, why haven't you read my book? And I'm like, I don't read. I'm a listener. I was like, do the audio, and I'm all over it.
Now, I will read. I do prefer a hard copy book.
I read fine. I just don't. I haven't read many books in my life, that's for sure. I'm not proud of it, but I've accepted the fact. I'm way better at comprehending stuff when I listen to it.
I've read bunches. Way too many. I still read them. I still got a pile of books over here.
My daughter's 8 and she's starting to read big time, and I was making fun of her. She's like, "Well, I like to read." I'm like, "No, keep reading." I was like, "It'll make you smarter." It's like, Dad should have read more. Her mom reads a lot. So.
Here's one I've been reading. Ancient to Modern Time Florida Indians, right? And one of the things I'd read in there was that a lot of these canals in Florida are actually old canoe pathways for the natives. I was like, well, that's cool. I never thought about that. I mean, I could see it now.
Yeah.
Because they would make a canoe out of one tree. And so they had like a highway and traveling with that all the time. I'm like,
that was the way to move before there was cars, for sure.
And they'd built their own canals.
That sounds horrible. Like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But even with a crane.
I know, and they're out there with like stone handles.
Yeah. Doing it with crude tools.
Kicking it with their foot.
Thousand times more work.
I'm like, cool. But I guess they wouldn't have to be too deep. It's just for a canoe, but...
Yeah.
I didn't read anything about the gators and them, but...
Ugh.
So there.
Another slight hurdle in the mission.
I'm going to go out, be gator hunting. I'm going glamping Monday for 4 nights, and it's a alligator kind of place. I've taken plenty of pictures there. Do some kayaking, and I've never been approached by an alligator.
I lived in Orlando. I knew where a couple of them were at. I took my dad there, and there was a couple in the city that were like living in this pond that were, I think they were allowed to be like under 4 foot or something, and they would leave them stay. They were close though, and I snuck up on the one on the shore and took off running, and it was kind of intimidating how fast it was. So it ran. It was running away from me, but I was like, "Whew, that thing is actually pretty fast. Could probably not run away from it."
Yeah, he probably thought you were getting ready to eat it.
I was sneaking up on him with a dog too.
I did watch a video of a small alligator running from a giant alligator the other day. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, and like not the same thing, but the one there was 2 alligators in there, and the one was picking on the other one, and it had like the last like foot of its tail was all bones from that other alligator. I'm guessing probably snapping at it all the time.
Yeah, not nice. Not nice. Oh well. All right, man. We'll get off of here, and we probably should have talked about the insurrection, but we'll do that again. Poor old insurrection.
It's such a tragic day in American history. Will never be forgotten.
No. By some people, for sure.
Bunch of crap.
Listening to Biden talk about those people, we will always remember you. I'm like, I don't know any of you. I know Ashley Babbitt.
It's the only person worth remembering.
I did trigger that one girl, but with Ashley Babbitt.
I see her comments, and I was like, that's kind of offensive what you're saying there. That's really not necessary.
Yeah, wasn't it? I'm like, she's a professional trigger. I went and looked at her page. She's just on there to trigger people.
Because, I mean, if you said the same thing about somebody in her circle, so to speak, she would go off and about how insensitive it was and everything, for sure.
Well, like when I did say something about her saying that, the Ashley Babbitt video was hilarious, that I should go check it out. And
wasn't something about Jesus?
Well, before then I told her that Jesus loves her.
Yeah.
And then she said to go check it out, and then I told her that I really wasn't into watching people killing other people. I was like, but since you are, you should check out the Kyle Rittenhouse video of him killing people trying to kill him. I hear that was pretty hilarious too. And she wrote I don't even know what she said.
I don't know. If you can watch that video and take anything away from it except for self-defense, it's like there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, and that's all I saw.
Yeah.
And
like if you hear the stories from what happened beforehand, it was fully justified.
Oh yeah, he had murdered 3 black guys. Was all they talked about for 2 years.
Forgot about that. He was racist.
Stupid racist boy. But yeah, that was something else John and I talked about. I was like, I wouldn't have taken my gun there at 17. That wouldn't have happened. Not ever. I would have had other buddies of mine with me. There would have been 3 or 4 of us roaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was on one hand, he didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but it just seemed like not a good setup. On the other hand, it was like, yeah, if he was there, he was probably like he did have his gun because they literally said they were going to kill him if they seen him later.
Well,
if they see you later, I'm going to fucking kill you.
He needed a gun, though. I mean, that's how unprepared I would have been walking into that without a gun. But, I like to think maybe I could have diffused it, but I don't know about those idiots. Those people don't think like me. And another thing, I was like, if my mom would have never, ever, not ever taken me to that part of town with a gun.
No.
No, she'd have took me the opposite direction and would have went to McDonald's or something. She would have loaded me into the car, but she would have took me somewhere else. Yeah, I wouldn't have gone there. And there probably would, like I said, would have been 3 of my buddies with me. So she'd have took us all to McDonald's. We would not have made it.
Sounds like a great mom.
Yeah, we would have never made it to that. She'd be like, yeah, get your guns, you got your bullets, you got everything you need, alright, get in. And then head the opposite direction. Yeah, she's good about stuff like that. Oh yeah, great idea, let's go. And then go somewhere else.
Fake psych.
I mean, she was stupid.
I am done now.
Alright, man. We will holler at you tomorrow. Guy Fox, he's wanting to do another one tomorrow.
Yeah, I should have time tomorrow night.
And we'll harass him more about being buddies with Andrew Tate.
He'll get there.
Poor old Andrew Tate. Oh well. Alright, DB, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, good times.
We'll harass you later. I think I'm going to put me
might
up.
Block you after this.
Now you sound like my ex-girlfriend.
Easy.
All of them. And my mom. Like, you're blocked. So.
Didn't say you were. I said maybe.
So.
Possibility.
Oh, my mom would just do it out of spite just to get a rise out of me. So. All right, DB. We'll harass you later. Thanks for coming on.
Yep. Sounds good.
And there you go. We guess we probably shouldn't rob John's shut-off line. Maybe I'll make a copy of it and then play it. That's what I can do.
Don't be a leftist and don't be a bitch.
Yeah,
bitches. Bitches.
All right, man. All right, man. Well, good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. So there you go, people. I hope you enjoyed just some random talking. Love you.